So this class is Advanced Container Design. And when I saw the title, I kind of laughed. I was like, did we have the 101 class already? This is the advanced class. Well, all of you are in the honors class. So smart. So, container gardening. How many of you are currently container gardening? Oh, trying. A lot of you. I love container gardening because it is so much easier than trying to dig a hole in the ground. Some of us have soils that are like cement, and it is really a challenge to dig, to be successful, especially with little flowers and that kind of stuff, whereas container gardening is just so easy. I think Ken and I have counted, I think we have, it's well over 30 pots in our yard. Front yard, backyard. I like them because I can move them around. I can change out styles seasonally if I want to. It just gives you a lot of flexibility. So people always ask, well, what can I grow in a container? Well, the answer is just about anything you want. In our yard, we have a standard sized cherry tree going in a pot. We have a fig tree. We always grow all our veggies in containers. I don't even try to mess with the vegetable garden anymore. So bushes, trees, evergreens, you can grow them in a pot. Very easy to do. But you got to use a little common sense or a little thinking about it. Because if I'm going to put, a 5 foot tall spruce in a pot, am I going to want to put it in this size? Probably not. Not going to last very long. So our great big cherry tree, we have it, it's probably 3 foot by 3 foot, maybe 4 by 4. So it's a great big pot. It's going to last in there a long time and be fine. So using some common sense, thinking about the size of what you're going to be planting, what's it going to look like in a few years, and then make your pot adjustment based on that information. Also, when it comes to containers, it comes down to what style of container, or what, are you going to use a ceramic pot, wood pot, plastic pot, metal pot? There's all kinds out there, right? The most important thing to think about is drainage. Your pot needs to have holes. Whether it's a bunch of holes, a few holes, a lot of holes, it has to have some kind of drainage. Because if you use a pot that doesn't have any holes in it, where's that water going to go? It's just going to continue to build and build and build, and next thing you know, your plants are floating and you have a bathtub. So drainage is usually important. Also with drainage is air circulation. So when you have your pot and you set it flat on the ground or on the dirt, you're not getting any movement of air through there. So if you happen to be an overwaterer, you're not getting air movement through your pot and air up into the roots. It doesn't really matter what you set it on. I've taken old bricks, I've taken other pots, I've taken stands, just something to prop it up a little bit so it's just not right on your driveway or right on the dirt. Just give it a way to have air movement through there. So whether you're doing wood, which it drains really well. The problem with wood in our area is it just doesn't hold up very long. So you might get 2 years, maybe 3 out of a wooden container, unless you're constantly treating it and keeping it up. But they just really break down really fast. That's my opinion. But if you like the look and it matches your yard and you want to use it, absolutely no reason not to. And wood is a perfectly good thing to plant in. Plastic. Plastic is terrific in that you can move it really easily. So a lot of times I do my veggies in plastic because I can move them around if I think they're getting too hot. I can move them where they're getting maybe some more shade. So plastic is nice that it's lightweight. Negative of plastic in our environment is the sun bakes them. And there again, they last a few years, but they're going to start cracking and breaking down. But they're inexpensive, so it's a trade-off. The terracotta, a lot of people like terracotta, which is, I like terracotta too, but it does have some negatives in that in our environment, with our cold winters, it will start cracking and shedding and just really there again doesn't hold up very long. There are some higher quality terracottas. The Italian and the German terracottas are a little thicker and they cook them at a little higher temperature so they hold up a little better. And the other thing with terracotta is that moisture kind of wicks its way out. You ever see on the side of a terracotta pot, you know, it's always got the white on it for the minerals. So the moisture moves out very easily in a terracotta pot. So when it's 100 degrees, that's not ideal for our environment. Great if you're going to put succulents and those kind of things in it, go for it. But if you're putting some more delicate or more water-thirsty things, I might think about something else, another type. These I grabbed. So we just got these in. I thought they were adorable. But they have great drainage holes too. A lot of times you find these and there's absolutely no drainage holes in them at all. These already came with them. Very, very nice. The thing about metal, you got to think about, there again, if it's 100 degrees, that metal gets pretty hot. So you might be cooking a few roots. You know? So, but they're lightweight, easy to move. You can move them into a shady spot for a while. We really only have, June? June is like the hottest month around. And if you have pots that you can kind of tuck up under or give a little bit of shade, for that time that they need it, and then when we get the monsoons and it's wonderful out, you can move them back out again. So that's the other great thing about container gardening is you can move them. And then, of course, ceramics. I love ceramics. They are, the negative with ceramics is by the time you get them filled with soil in your plants, yeah, you need a dolly to move them. But we have some terrific, I should have brought one up, I didn't, pot dollies, you know, that you can set them on top of that have the wheels, and you roll those suckers around wherever you want them to be. So if you're using a heavy or big ceramic pot, I think you'd be very wise to put something underneath it that can help you move it, because they do get quite heavy. But they hold up tremendously well. I have some in my yard that are at least 15 years old and have not cracked.
I've not mine would crack and just fall apart over the winter.
Some of it is the quality of the pot that you're buying. So the ones that we carry are high quality and they're high fired. So they're not going to disintegrate in the winter. Now some of your less expensive pots and the ones that I've noticed are really bad are the Televerdi. Is that right? The real colorful, those things. Oh my goodness, don't leave those outside in the wintertime. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, so pot dollies. Just throw them on your pot dollies, that way they're much easier to move. Plus it kind of helps with that air circulation that we talked about. So take advantage of those guys. So yeah, if your pots have been breaking down, I encourage you to buy a better quality of pot. Is it more expensive? Yes, it is. But if you take it out over the number of years that you're going to have it, it's not that bad. You know? Okay, any question? Yes, sir.
Quick question. We didn't talk about saucers underneath the pots because that sort of negates what you were just talking about with the pot dolly, doesn't it?
Right. So if you're using a saucer, so say you have you're going to put it on your deck, and you don't want the water stains there, you can use a saucer. What I would still recommend, there's these little things called pot feet. And you can stick them under your pot, but still have your saucer there. And it lifts them just enough that you're going to get some good air circulation in there. The other thing that helps with is sometimes after a while, your soil will compact so much that it fills the little holes, the drainage holes in your pot. Lifting it up just somewhat really helps with that, just because of that movement of air and free movement of water flowing out. So I would encourage you to take advantage of those couple little things that really can make a huge difference in the quality of the life of the plants that you're growing.
What about putting like larger stones in the bottom to keep the air moving?
Yeah. So her recommendation or thought was to put some larger stones in there in your saucer to keep it up.
Or in the bottom of the pot before you put your soil in?
So yeah, that used to be very much, everybody said, oh, put rock in the bottom of your pots, it helps with drainage. We're finding that's not so true. And the other thing it does is it makes your pot even heavier. So I would think if you wanted to put it in your saucer, some rocks in there and put your pot on that, yeah, that would really work. But you don't really want to start putting rocks or gravel inside your container. So then it comes, we've talked about our pot, then it comes down to soil. If you are, use a good potting soil. It makes all the difference in the world. If you try to go use soil from your yard, and I've seen that, oh my God, your poor little plants. We have really crummy soil. The whole point of being container gardening is to create a good environment for your plants. So if you're digging out the clay and the caliche and you're throwing it in your beautiful pot, you're just going to have very unhappy plants. So use a good potting soil and use straight potting soil. Don't try to mix mulch in it or steer manure or your neighbor's horse pile. Straight potting soil. The other thing about potting soil is you want a potting soil that drains well. So there's a plethora of soils out there on the market, and not all of them are good. So some of them don't drain. They get the water and they hang on to it and they just become this ooey gooey blah. So you want a good potting soil. So what makes a good potting soil, right? So a good potting soil, we've made our own, the Waters potting soil. I can dance. So our Waters potting soil is a soilless potting soil. So you're like, what? So a good our potting soil is peat moss, and it also has perlite, vermiculite, that kind of stuff in it. You'll see some chip, like little wood chips in it. And everybody's kind of going, well, what do you want those for? Well, it allows it to have organic matter in there, but it also allows it to drain well. So it's gonna not compact as hard. Some of them you pick and you can make like a little mud ball, or do you guys ever make cow patty pies? Your kids? We did that all the time. But it keeps it from becoming that ooey gooey mess. So it's going to hold moisture, but it's also going to allow moisture or water to move through it. So it drains well. You really want a potting soil that is going to help drain that water through, because if you don't, the roots are going to get too wet, too soggy, and they're just going to rot right off. So really important to have a good potting soil. Ours, when you first get it out of the bag, some people go, oh, it's so dry. And it feels very dry. But you put a little bit of moisture in there and work it, and it just becomes this nice, wonderful, dark soil. Vincent's going to be very dirty by the time I'm done. He's down here sleeping. So good potting soil, hugely important. And yes, there again, it's kind of an upfront cost, getting a good potting soil and filling the entire pot with potting soil, but it is so worth it down the road. Okay, any questions? Okay.
I've heard it's not a good idea to use the same potting soil year after year? Is that correct, or?
So if Ken was up here, he would say, yes, get rid of all your soil every year and put a new one in. And that's good. I have no problem with that, especially in your smaller pots. If I only have this size pot, I would definitely replace my soil every year. If I'm in a great big pot, I don't know if some of you can see, I have a great big green pot up here. I might leave the bottom portion and put fresh soil on the top. Even if you're going to reuse your soil, just remember these plants are growing, they're pulling nutrient out. So they're going to deplete your soil. They're going to use up the organic matter. So it's always good to put fresh soil in there. Do you need to do the whole thing? Depends on the size of pot that you have. Did you have a question?
I just wondered if you could use that soil for succulents.
Oh, the waters? Oh, you bet. Yeah.
Use it for what?
Succulents, sorry. She was asking if we could use this for succulents. So succulents and cactus, they definitely want a soil that's going to drain. So I would have no problem using this, but we also have a cactus mix soil that has more sand in it. And that's great for if you're going to do succulents and that type of thing. So, yes ma'am.
What about adding, they have a lot of soils that have additives to retain the water, to hold the water in. Is
Yeah.
that a good idea here?
So yes, so we make one called Aquaboost Crystals. So it's a polymer. The little beads in there are going to swell up when you get, they get wet, they get the water. But as it goes through the days and the time, it slowly releases a little bit of water all the time. So I love these. The caution is don't overuse these. It gives you directions, and people, it's not if a little is good, more is better. Doesn't work with this. You want to use the right amount, because if you use too much, it like swells up and it oozes out of the pot, and you're like, it's an alien life form in my pot. But these are great, and this one also has a mycorrhiza in it, which is wonderful to help those roots get started. It creates a really nice, healthy root with nice, fine root hairs. So yes, polymers are a really good idea. Just don't go crazy with them. There was another question, yes?
What about stuff like worm castings and stuff?
Yeah, no problem with worm castings. So that's another form of getting organic material in there. It's great. Would I use straight earth castings? No. But wonderful to mix in because it's getting organic material in there. So nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't use horse manure, cow manure, anything like that, because I think that's just too hot. So I would not get crazy with that. Yes, sir.
I bought activated charcoal. It's good in the soil.
Sure. So he's asking about activated charcoal. They use that a lot in terrarium plantings. I don't have a problem with that. Usually you're kind of laying that on the bottom of your pot. It's pretty fine. And I'm either here nor there. Some people swear by it. If it's your thing and it works for you, use it. But I don't think you have to have it.
Gypsum,
So-
native soil, lime,
Okay. Sure.
native soil, gypsum.
So he's asking about gypsum and lime in your pots to mix in with your soil. Gypsum, especially if you're doing veggies, tomatoes and peppers, it's great. I have no problem with it. It kind of gets calcium into the soil, which is, if you get blossom end rot in your tomatoes and peppers, it's a lack of calcium. So it's a great way to get calcium in there to prevent that blossom end rot. Lime, we do not use lime here because lime increases the alkalinity. And we are already off the charts. Most of our water is very alkaline, so we just you don't need it here.
Okay, how about Epsom salt?
Epsom salts? Yeah. A lot of people use Epsom salts. Yeah, I don't, but a lot of people do. A lot of people swear by them. And like I said before, if that's your thing and you love using Epsom salts and that kind of stuff and it's working for you, continue to do it.
Weed green.
Right, right. So if you have things that are working for you and, you know, like I said, if there's 100 gardeners, there's 100 different ways to garden. So, yes, ma'am.
Do you ever hear of putting coffee grounds in here?
Oh, we're going off on tangents, yeah. So her question was putting coffee grounds in. I think in a raised bed or a garden bed, it'd be fine. I'm not sure in a container. I mean, it probably wouldn't hurt, but if you kept doing it over and over and over time, I don't know. But yeah, in raised beds, garden beds, a lot of people do that, putting coffee grounds in. One more question, then we're moving on. Chicken poop? No!
Okay. You said cow and horse, but you
Yeah.
didn't say chicken.
So anything that's going to be hot. So hot is going to burn those really tender little roots off. You don't want to do, because in a container, everything is like right there. There's no, it can't get washed out into extra soils. It's all right there for the roots to take up. So you want to be careful not to use fertilizers that are hot, fertilizers that are high in salts. So when we're talking about that, I'll hit on this. So fertilizers, I know a lot of you use, we're not allowed to say this word here, Miracle-Gro. So Miracle-Gro is really high in salt. Plants don't like salt. Our water is still kind of high in salt. So you're just creating this problem that's getting exacerbated and growing. So not a huge fan of Miracle-Gro. I do like, so these are the two fertilizers that we like to promote. This one's a water soluble. This is Flower Power 54. The 54 stands for the phosphorus that's in there, that middle number of the three numbers. Phosphorus is what encourages your plants to bloom. So if you want a lot of blooms, you need something high in phosphorus. This one's water soluble. You can use this about every 2 weeks throughout the season, and it really does keep things blooming. It is amazing. Sometimes I have to talk people into buying this, and then they come back, they're like, oh my gosh. It's a really great product. To me, this is the chocolate shake or the Red Bull. You know, it's kind of, ooh, okay, I'm awake, I'm growing. So it's a good product to keep things blooming. If you want meat and potatoes, so this is your regular meal, because we can't all live off of Red Bull unless you're 18 and they live off of Red Bull. So this is a meat and potatoes product. So this is an all-natural fertilizer. It's a slow-release fertilizer. You can use it. It's not going to burn. It's just going to slowly break down and feed for 2-3 months. So it's good. You can mix it in when you do your original planting. You can just lay it on top of the soil when you're done, and it'll just slowly break down. So those are the two fertilizers that we like and that we recommend to use. Just don't use Miracle-Gro. Give me a promise. Don't use Miracle-Gro. And I'll hit on this one real quick too. So this is root stimulator. So after you've done your planting, you've got everything planted, it's beautiful, you're ready to look lovely. Root and Grow is a rooting hormone, and it also helps with transplant shots. Because you've taken this poor little plant, you've kind of mushed his roots and you've crammed him in. So he's a little stressed. So the Root and Grow, as you're finishing, is just really encourages that real fine root hairs to grow, which you want a strongly rooted plant, because when it's 100 degrees, the more roots you have, the better it's going to be. And it also helps with that, just that initial transplant trauma. I like the word trauma. This you can use, I think about every 2 weeks. I mean, you can use it when you plant, but you can also use it throughout the season too. Wonderful if you have plants that are looking stressed, if they're just looking kind of, it's a great product to use on that, whether it's in the ground or in a pot. Excellent product to revive and just help with those really stressful situations. Any questions?
We have a question on live stream. You may
Okay.
have already covered this because I had to step away from the camera a second, but Tina would like to know, is a galvanized pot good for veggies and herbs?
Okay. We did a little bit touch on that. Galvanized pot for veggies and herbs. Sure, you can do it as long as you have good drainage. And just be aware that that pot's probably going to get a little hotter in the hottest part of the seasons, so you may need to water it more frequently because it's going to heat things up. So yes, you can do it, just beware of the drainage. Okay, any questions on that? Okay. So just because we're here, and I'll get this over with, tools to use when you're potting, good gloves. A lot of people, now I'll be honest, I don't use gloves when I plant, but I don't have any nails, so it doesn't matter. You can see I'm used to dirty hands. I'm okay with it. That's just the way I learned to do it. I make sure I take my rings off, and I'm aware of that. A lot of people just don't like it. They're going to wear gloves. These are great because they have like that little rubberized stuff to them, so the water isn't going to soak in. So this is really nice. I do wear these for moving pots and stuff around. These I just thought were really pretty, ladies. Aren't they pretty? And really comfy too. I've worn these as well. And they also have a kind of nice little rubberized area to help keep hands clean. This is a little tool. I love this little tool. I call it nippers because it's great for deadheading stuff. So once you've got everything planted, you have to deadhead, right? Flowers start to go. I'm trying to think of good example here. So these are wonderful for trying to look for, oh, there's a dead one. So just reaching down in there and popping it off. So I love these. A lot of people use their fingers, but then you do get a green stain on there. So these are a wonderful little tool. This one's a straight edge. They also make one that has a curved edge. I thought I brought up. I don't see it. There's one that has a little curved edge on it too. I don't think there's any difference between the two. But if you do a lot of deadheading, if that's your thing to go out in the morning with your cup of coffee, these are terrific. Okay. Any questions? All right, we'll move on. So potting. When you're getting ready to pot, you want to get your soil in there first. Oh, this pot's heavy. So I've got my soil started in there because you want a good base to work with so you can kind of arrange your plants in there once you get going. Make sure it's moistened. Do not use a dry potting soil. So you can get it in your pot, add some water, mix it around. You just don't want a dry soil because if I take my plant, which there again you want to be nicely moist before you plant, pull the roots off the bottom. Sometimes if you take a plant, there we go. Roots on it. If you take a plant that is nice and moist, but you put it in dry potting soil, it's going to immediately suck the moisture out of those roots into the dry soil. And then your root ball is getting stressed out. So moisten, make sure your plants are watered before you start potting. Make sure your potting soil has some moisture in it. You don't need a mud bog, but you want moisture in there. So I kind of get a good base going in there so I can kind of arrange my plants. Now this one, we saw the roots, right? I'll pull the roots off the bottom. And then I'll loosen the roots on the side. A lot of people freak out. They're like, what is she doing? It's okay. You can do that. You want to loosen them up because if you don't loosen them up, where are the roots going to go?
Around themselves.
Around and around and around, and you don't have a good root system. But we're going to loosen the roots up. And that's why we use root and grow when we're done planting. So this allows me, what I usually do is I pull them out of the pots. You can leave them in the pots and figure out where you want them to go, but I find it's easier to kind of pull them out. But if I set them in there, then I can kind of figure out how I want to design my pot, right? And I'm not a very neat planter. Some people are like, oh, there's dirt. It's okay, you can sweep it up. A lot of people will put a tarp down, you know, if they're, I guess it depends on how neat a person you are. Now, I'm using 1 gallon size plants in this pot. And the reason I'm doing that, because I'm trying to move fast. If you've got a lot of pots to do, or you don't have a lot of time, pick some bigger plants, right? It's gonna take a lot less time. And the other thing is, it's gonna look full right away. So I can do it where I've got my tall plant in the back and some fillers. This is Lobularia, it's in the alyssum family, but it's gonna spill over. So it's giving your, instead of just being a flat, everything the same height, which is boring. Our eyes don't like to look at that. They like to look at textures, heights, and widths. So on this one, I've stuck it where maybe I'm gonna have it against a wall. So I don't need all 3 sides, I just need a few. So I took my height and I pushed it to the back. If you are gonna be seeing it from all sides, maybe you need that more in the middle. It's okay to cram things together. You know, I think the biggest mistake people make is they'll take a great big pot and they put 3 things in it. Well, yeah, okay, by August, it'll probably grow out, but you've missed that whole window of a beautiful pot. So don't be afraid to cram things in there. And the other thing it will do, especially with some of your pots, if you lose a specific plant, if one of your plants dies, which, I don't know, always seems to happen, especially when you're potting a bunch of little things together, one of them will die. I don't know why, they just do. But hopefully it's filled in enough that if I pull out one dead one, you'll never know because it's nice and full. But if you've got big ones in there, but you want to fill in with a little bit of other texture and color, that's where a 6-pack is really handy. There again, loosen your roots. And now I can start shoving that in there. It's going to sink because I don't have enough soil. You could also, but isn't that much more appealing to have a full pot to begin with? Where you're not looking at just empty
Is that
soil.
about a 10 or 12 inch? How big is that?
This one, it's probably about a 12 or 14, I'd say. So then I'm just gonna, once you get your big stuff in, you can fill in with your little stuff and really create a nice full pot.
Lisa, what are you filling in with? Is that gonna be perennially green? Is that ever gonna flower? What is that?
This is Dusty Miller. Dusty Miller is a terrific little plant. It is tough as nails. It doesn't mind the cold, doesn't really mind the heat. Very animal resistant. Critters don't like to eat it because it's kind of fuzzy. So they'd be like, oh, thank you. So, and it will send up a little yellow flower. I usually pinch that out of there because if it goes to seed or to bloom, it tends to get really long, and I don't want it to do that. So I pinch that out of there and it keeps it nice and full. Lobularia, I was just going to touch on this one again. I love this plant. We had it in pots last year, and it looked beautiful. Even up past Christmas, it was gorgeous, and it draped all the way down, and it took the full sun. It was amazing. They also make it in a purple. This is the purple one.
That was
There is lobulia, but this is different. It's in the alyssum family. Yeah.
But it's
I
not
think
alyssum?
It's not alyssum. It drapes a lot further down than alyssum does.
Is it hardier than alyssum also?
Lobularia. I think it is
Hardier?
hardier. So which brings up another really good point. If you're going to put plants together, make sure they're plants that want the same kind of care. So if I was putting this all together and went, oh, look, I'm gonna put in a lavender. Well, it's not a happy combination because lavenders don't want to be wet all the time. They really like to be on the dry side, whereas my pansy or my lobularia, they're gonna want more moisture. So I really wouldn't put that combo together because they're not gonna be happy together. So if you're planting, say you want plants that are really drought hardy or can take a lot of sun, you would want to put a combo together that likes the same amount of water, the same sun. So this pot also would be an excellent container or grouping if you have animal problems. You have javelina, you have deer, bunnies, things like that. This little combo would be excellent because I have salvia, red salvia, which is a perennial. Deer and javelina, bunnies, really leave it alone. So it's a good one. That would be kind of my height. This one's going to get, if it was in the ground, it'd probably get 3 foot by 3 foot. Putting it in a pot with other things is going to contain it a little more, but it's still going to get some good size to it. And I need to be aware of that. So I can either set it in the back, set it in the middle, so it's giving me that nice height in the middle. To drape over the pot, I grab some verbena, real pretty little verbena. This one is pretty much perennial too, unless you're in the really high elevations, it might freeze out. Did it? Yeah. This is sandpaper verbena. The texture on this leaf is like sandpaper. And the animals do not like it because there again, it's going to get stuck in their throat. They don't want that. This one spreads out too, so it's another one that I'm going to put on the edge because I kind of want it to spill out of my pot and soften my pot. This is Scabiosa. It's going to send up, I need 5 hands. It's going to send up these little flower heads all season long. And they get a little taller, so it's a good filler. It's going to create some, fill the space between my salvia and my plants that are draping over the edge. So it's filling that space in there. Scabiosa is an amazing butterfly attractor. Good plant to have out there. But the thing about all these plants is they want the same thing. They like the sun. They don't want to be overly wet. They're all animal resistant. So when you're thinking about your combos that you want to put together, think about what you're trying to achieve.
If you're picking these plants for full sun and putting them in a dark pot, if the pot if it's right out in the sun, isn't the pot itself going to get really hot?
Well, the nice thing about ceramic pots too is because they're thick, they're not going to cook the roots. So if I was doing it in plastic, I might think about it, but you're just going to water more probably. Right. Was there another question?
What was the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Her question was, so I'm taking these heat-loving plants and I'm going to put them out in full sun, and I'm in a dark blue pot. Is that pot going to get too hot? Is it going to cook the roots? Well, the ceramic pots are nice and thick, so they're not going to get as hot. So if you're doing, so these are plants I grabbed for shade. Delphinium. This is a perennial geranium. Isn't that pretty? That's so this is kind of going to be this is my upright. This is my thriller. It's catching my eye. This is going to kind of drape over the edge. It's going to be my nice spill and soften the edge of my pot. Heuchera. Now some of you are looking at this color combination and going, oh, I don't like that. And some of you are looking at it going, oh, that's terrific. And that's the other thing I tell people. Put combinations together that you like. There's no rule that says, you know, you have to have 1 pink and 2 red and 3 whites. It's whatever you like. I've seen pots where they call them the monochrome colors, where everything in the pot's the same color, but it has different heights and textures, and that's kind of cool. I like that look. I don't think I would necessarily do it for me because I love colors. I love to mix my colors, but that's me. You got to do what's right for you. So don't be afraid to mix whatever you like together.
What is that leafy plant called again?
This is Heuchera.
Say it again.
Heuchera.
Heuchera.
It's fun to say. Just say Heuchera. It's really fun. Another perennial. Yeah.
It's a perennial.
This one, the purple one is a perennial geranium. This one's delphinium.
Can they take a little sun? When they say shade loving, can they take a little sun, like morning sun?
Yes. So things, you know, if we're talking shade, most things can take morning sun, they can take late afternoon sun. It's that sun between 10 and 3, you know, where it's just baking. Nobody wants to be out there in that. But a lot of your shade things can take some sun or dappled light, like under a tree. Yes, ma'am.
What do you recommend for like a front door area that faces north and it's pretty much in the shade all day, doesn't really get any direct sun at all? Just those would work there even if there's
There's
no
a
sun.
lot of things
No, but I
that-
mean even if there's no sun at all. I mean,
Yeah,
some
they'd
of
be
them do
fine.
need some sun.
My front door is like that too. I mean, I get, in my front entryway, I have the sun does not hit
Yeah,
there at
because it
all.
gets absolutely nothing.
Right, so you're picking shade-loving plants. Now, I grabbed all perennials because I don't have a lot of shade annuals in right at the moment. But you could put coleus in there, fuchsias, begonias, all kinds of things in those shade spots. So you just ask questions. You go, I'm putting together a shade pot. Help me find some plants that love the shade. And trust me, we can do that. The other one, I did grab, so I grabbed the ivy. Ivy's like shade. So I could have easily put this in my combo to help spill over as well. Thing with ivy that I found through trial and error, it gets very aggressive. Vinca too, the periwinkle vinca gets very aggressive. If you're gonna use it, I mean I love using it, but every year kind of go pull some of it out. Otherwise all you'll have is a pot of ivy or a pot of vinca.
And mint?
Mint, yeah, mint's another one, gets very aggressive. I have no problem using it, but you just gotta go yank some of it out every year. And it'll be fine, trust me. The other thing you can do with ivy and the other more shade-loving things is if you have a really tall, I've done this with some of my grasses. So this is actually an annual grass. It doesn't survive the winter here, but it does beautiful in pots. And it gets very tall and sends up these wonderful little plumes. It's a really cool plant, but it'll die in the winter, so be aware of that. But I know this is gonna get really big and full. I could plant a shade-loving plant underneath it, because this is gonna shade this. So you can do some little tricks. If you just love ivy, but you have a full sun spot, just use it as an underplanting where it's protected. I'm gonna try and lift this. If I have a hernia, I'll do it. So, succulents. Are you guys, anybody doing much with succulents?
Trying, yeah.
It's like my new thing. I'm loving succulents. The only thing about succulents is, if you go for a week on vacation, they're gonna be fine. They don't care. So if you do a lot of traveling, succulents are amazing.
What about freezing though? Because
Well, you'll have to be careful, because in this pot, I have 2 things that would maybe freeze out, and I have 2 things that are really, really hardy. So my option is, in the wintertime, I can move it up closer to the house. I can put it in the sunroom, I can throw it in my garage, bring it inside and enjoy it inside. So, but I love the textures of these things too. The agaves, I love this little plant here. But it's something, okay. Think about, especially if you travel a lot, or you're just not, you don't think you have green thumbs, start with some succulents because they are so easy to care for. The only thing that's really going to kill them is if you overwater them. So if you're a person that likes to go out every morning and water, don't do succulents because you'll kill them. But if you travel, if you're busy, succulents are fabulous. And we're trying to get more and more in. They're not all going to be winter hardy, so pay attention when you're planting them. If you have a really hardy pot, I have a pot full of hens and chicks that stays out year-round. It looks fabulous. It doesn't care if it gets cold. It doesn't care if it gets snow on it. So that one's great. This one also survives the winter. Stays this color in the wintertime.
What's that called?
This is Angelina. This one gets really long, drapes down, very, very pretty. Doesn't mind the cold.
Is that a good ground cover?
Yeah.
Snowing on.
Doesn't care. This one's really cool, but it's only got a temperature rating for cold to like 15 degrees. So if you were in a really cold spot, or it was just out by itself, or it was getting a lot of cool, it probably would show some damage on it. But I could, like I said, I could bring it up under, I can cover it. But be aware of the plants that you're putting in succulents, because there's thousands of succulents, and no, they're not all winter hardy. So be aware of
Lisa,
that.
one of the things that I noticed that on some of the instructional tags on the plants is that it won't say down to 10 degrees or something. It'll say good in regions such and such, and I never know.
So I would, you could do some research. If you get it here, we can tell you if it's winter hardy, but we freeze here. We get cold winters.
Sure.
And a lot of the succulents truly are not winter hardy. So just be careful.
Well, I'm not
We're-
talking necessarily about succulents. I mean any kind
Anything?
of a plant. But they'll say good in regions 6 and 7 or something. But then
Oh,
there's
zones?
zones. Sorry.
What is our zone?
Seven?
So zones, so USDA created zones, so for where parts of the country where you're at. Prescott proper, we're kind of a 6B. You can probably grow 7s here. I have stuff in my yard that's an 8. So anything in that range, so the lower you go, the lower the number, the colder you are. So Flagstaff, I think, is a 4 to 5.
Okay.
Phoenix is a 9, 10. The higher the number, the more heat, but it's tender for here. So if it's a zone 10, it's a great annual for here, but it isn't going to winter over. So those zones on your plants are important to pay attention to, definitely. Any other questions? Oh, no. So we talked about if you're going to put plants together, make sure you have things that like each other. They're all going to get along. No fighting in the pots. You can also mix things, even though they'll probably like the same soil and light and all that kind of stuff. So this is Swiss chard. I love Swiss chard. Look at the stems on that. It's absolutely gorgeous. Love this plant. I put it in my pots, I put it in the ground.
I put it in my stool.
Yeah. Plus we use, Ken likes to juice. It's his new thing, is juicing. So it works really well in that. Great in salad. But I could also mix some of my lettuce in there with it. And that's a pretty combo with the red and the Swiss chard and in the lettuce. This is a little speckled lettuce. So that's a really pretty combo. Yeah. And the other thing I could do is throw in some violas with it. Just because they're edibles doesn't mean I can't put flowers with it. You can mix it. They don't care. They're not going to care, but it's a great pot that you can pull from and eat from, but it also gives you wonderful color. So I liked this big kind of red pansy with this. I thought it gave it a really nice combo. The great thing about white flowers, what I find is most people don't like white, but if you're mixing it in with other things, it really shows off the other colors. So don't be afraid to use white. I could also throw in some beets. These are beets. I could tuck those in around Be really pretty, picks up the reds as well. You can harvest those, put them in your shakes, your salads. This is another beet. This is bull's blood beet. Say that 3 times. But look at that color with it. Isn't that nice? Just really good colors and textures together. This one I pulled because I thought, oh, maybe I want to do an herb pot. So there's rosemary. I'm going to throw in lemon thyme with it. Both of these are not heavy water users. They're going to be fine. They're happy together. Maybe I want to throw in a sage because I like cooking. Not true, but so I got a nice little combo that if I had on my front porch, I could go grab some rosemary for my potatoes, some sage, some lemon thyme. Makes a nice little pot. Maybe I want to throw a little snapdragon in there too for color. So don't be afraid to mix your combinations. Just make sure they all get along together. You were talking about, somebody was talking about mint earlier. I love this. This is a pineapple mint. Isn't that pretty? But yeah, if you're going to use mint in a pot, it will get aggressive. The other thing you could do is kind of just cut the bottom off of this and put this in your container. It'll keep it somewhat contained. Not a perfect solution, but it'll give you more time in there.
That has really pretty red flowers.
Does it? I didn't know that. Cool. So I think we've covered a lot of things. People are asking, what can I do to give the thrill, the fill, the spill? So simple things in the center of your pots can give you some nice height. You can even take, you can go down to like Joann's or wherever and get the wooden stakes, like the curlicue stakes and that kind of stuff. But those in the center. So don't be afraid to try different things. There's a lot of, you can be creative with it. Does anybody have any questions? What time is it? Yes.
You put those raw roots into that plant. Now, how do you finish that off with your soil?
So the way I would do it is I usually have my bag or pot of soil. So I've got everything kind of stuck in here. This is where the delicate work comes in. So you're grabbing soil and you're kind of pulling stuff aside and you're stuffing it in and you're going to fill it. And you tamp it down as you're filling it. I mean, don't smoosh it down, but you want to just tamping it down so you're getting rid of the air pockets in there. So you just kind of have to delicately, that's your finishing touch kind of thing, is grab that soil, fill your pockets. Tamp it down. When I get that all done, frequently I'll run some water over it.
You don't want to saturate it.
Not saturate it, but I'm running some water over it because what happens when I put water over it, that soil moves down even more. So after I've done that, I kind of push it down again. Do I need more soil? Do I have a gaping hole? You just got to finish it off that way. So you're just kind of tucking everything in. The other thing you might think about is when you want to give yourself some space between the soil level and the top of the pot. Because if you plant everything like really high and the soil level's right at the top of your pot, every time you water, that soil's going to come right down. So give yourself a couple inches at the top. I mean, not a lot. I see a lot of pots where there's like this much room, there's plants down here, here's the edge of the pot. That's not very pretty either. But give yourself some room to water it without the water just flowing out all the time. You may find a little bit later in the season, so you put together this beautiful pot, but it's been 3 months and you look at it and the soil has really kind of just smooshed down in there. It's okay to go in and put some more fresh soil in there. The plant's gonna like it, it'll be a lot happier, it'll look more attractive. Yes, sir.
I made a border about 25 feet long, patio border with cinder blocks. Planting in those holes with cinder blocks. I put geraniums, but right now it's
So he made a
Water.
order, thank you, the cinder block, you know, it has the holes in it. And last year he put geraniums in it.
Yeah.
And he's asking right now what I put in, because we're not in that real heat loving season. That's where I would go with, you could do pansies. You could do snapdragons. You can do, you could put some veggies in there. Why not put some lettuce in there? It's really pretty.
Rabbits.
Rabbits? They love it. Oh, they love it. They probably leave a thank you note. If you have critter issues, snapdragons are amazingly critter resistant. They don't like them. They will eat your pansies. They will eat your lettuce.
When I change them out.
When we get really hot, so into May, middle of May, you know, it depends on how hot we get, how soon. And that's always, who knows. But they'll tell you, when it gets really hot and you're a cool season flower, they just kind of go, oh, I can't take it anymore. That's when you know to yank them out and put your warm seasons in. So, yeah, right now we're in cool season. We're gonna get frost up until the middle of May. We have a beautiful day like this and we go, oh, I need to go put my tomatoes in, my cucumbers. It will freeze, people, it will freeze. So unless you have a way to protect them, don't waste your time, your money, your energy. If you need beautiful color right now, put in the things that like it. Your pansies, your kale, your lettuces. And they love that. But when it gets really hot, then you switch them out and you put in your petunias and your geraniums and what else? All kinds of stuff.
How about those small rose trees?
Sure.
Rose and Sharon.
So if you're doing a rose in a pot or a shrub in a pot.
It's in the soil.
In the soil? So if you're planting in the ground, you want to put mulch in. Right. But don't use mulch in your pots. Right. Yes, ma'am.
Your Swiss chard combo, does that rejuvenate itself? I mean,
yeah.
So if you're going to go out and pick a salad, then it's going to look like the rabbits have eaten it.
So your question is, if I'm doing, you know, Swiss chard and lettuce, and I go harvest for my lunch, is it going to make this thing look like the rabbits had dinner on it? The great thing about these guys is the more you pick on them, the more they're going to grow. So don't be afraid to harvest on them. No, you're not going to want to pick the entire thing, but you could pick like these big outer leaves, and the new ones will grow on. So, and that's where throwing something else in with it that has the color, that'll help disguise that too, that you're eating off of it. Yes? Yes. Yeah, they're full sun. As we get more warm, hotter, you could move it into a shadier spot in your yard and it would go even longer. So I think I can answer any more questions, but some of you signed up to actually plant a container. It's so much fun, you gotta do it. Anyways, that's gonna be over there. We have the bowls set up. Cheryl, my handy dandy assistant, is there to help. And for those of you that are gonna do planting, I would say go that way. Cheryl will tell you kind of what to do as far as grabbing your plants and all that kind of stuff. If you have more questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you, but I don't want to delay the planting part of it.